Were God's most powerful angels actually forced to stand down while Jesus died? The crucifixion scene we've all imagined might be missing its most dramatic elements. While artists have depicted a darkened sky and mourning followers, ancient texts suggest something far more extraordinary was unfolding in the spiritual realm. According to several early Christian writings, the most powerful beings in heaven's army, Archangels Michael and Uriel, were present at Calvary, commanded to witness but not intervene as their Creator suffered. This raises a profound question that has troubled theologians for centuries. If heaven's mightiest warriors stood at the ready, why was Jesus allowed to endure such torment when divine intervention was merely a command away? The canonical Gospels make no explicit mention of angels at the crucifixion itself, creating one of Christianity's most intriguing mysteries. Why would heaven's mightiest warriors be absent during creation's most pivotal moment? The answer, according to various apocryphal texts and early Christian traditions, is that they weren't absent at all. They were present but restrained in a cosmic display of divine patience that continues to confound human understanding. The Gospel of Nicodemus, also called the Acts of Pilate, though not included in the biblical canon, describes a scene where angelic forces gathered in invisible ranks around the cross. According to this account, Michael stood as commander of these celestial witnesses, his legendary sword sheathed despite his burning desire to intervene. One particularly striking passage suggests that Michael approached the foot of the cross, wings extended in a gesture of reverence, while legions of angels hovered above Jerusalem, their presence causing unexplained phenomena reported by Roman soldiers. Strange lights in the sky and unsettling sensations of being watched by unseen observers. Eastern Orthodox traditions particularly emphasize the presence of angels at the crucifixion, with ancient liturgical texts suggesting Uriel was tasked with collecting Christ's blood in a sacred vessel, a precursor to what would later evolve into the Holy Grail narrative in medieval tradition. These traditions describe Uriel as the flame of God, positioned to ensure no demonic force could approach the cross during the crucifixion. According to these accounts, while Michael commanded the heavenly host, Uriel served as guardian of the sacred blood, ensuring not a single drop would touch the earth without divine purpose. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which maintains one of the oldest continuous Christian traditions, preserves texts describing an extraordinary moment when Michael allegedly approached Pontius Pilate in disguise 3 days before the crucifixion, warning him against participating in the execution. When his warning went unheeded, Michael is said to have taken a position at the right hand of the cross, invisible to human eyes but radiating such intense energy that Roman soldiers reported feeling inexplicable fear and awe throughout the execution. What makes these accounts so compelling is what they suggest about divine restraint. These weren't merely passive observers but warriors capable of destroying armies, now commanded to witness the ultimate sacrifice without lifting a finger to prevent it. The Gospel of Peter, another non-canonical text discovered in 1886, includes a passage where the heavens open momentarily during the crucifixion, revealing ranks of angels in battle formation, poised to intervene but held back by divine command. A visual representation of the cosmic struggle between justice and mercy playing out in real time. The Armenian tradition adds another layer to this narrative, suggesting that Michael and Uriel were not merely present as observers, but actively engaged in spiritual warfare during the crucifixion. According to these accounts, Lucifer and his fallen angels gathered at Golgotha, attempting to claim victory as Christ suffered. It was Michael and Uriel who formed an impenetrable barrier around the cross, ensuring that while physical suffering could proceed according to divine plan, no spiritual interference would be permitted. This tradition maintains that the darkness that fell over the land for 3 hours wasn't merely a natural phenomenon but the visual manifestation of this spiritual battle raging invisible to human eyes. Perhaps most intriguing are the Coptic manuscripts that describe Michael's emotional response to witnessing the crucifixion. According to these texts, the archangel who had never known tears wept for the first time in his eternal existence, creating a phenomenon where his tears, falling to earth, became precious stones, an attempt to explain the origin of certain crystalline formations found near Jerusalem. These accounts humanize these celestial beings, suggesting that even for angels, the crucifixion represented an incomprehensible moment where divine love transcended celestial understanding. The Syriac tradition preserves accounts where both Michael and Uriel were tasked with specific roles during the crucifixion, Michael charged with monitoring the cosmic balance as the divine merged with human suffering, and Uriel responsible for ensuring that prophetic timelines remained intact. According to these texts, the precision timing of events during the Passion, from the darkness at noon to the earthquake at the moment of death, were orchestrated by these archangels to fulfill prophetic requirements established since the foundation of creation. What emerges from these diverse traditions is a picture far more complex than the relatively sparse canonical accounts. Rather than a simple human execution observed by mourning followers, these traditions paint the crucifixion as a multidimensional event where the visible human drama was merely the surface of a profound cosmic confrontation, with Michael and Uriel serving as heaven's representatives at the pivotal moment when eternity intersected with human history. The question that continues to fascinate scholars and believers alike is not whether angels were present, but why beings of such power would be commanded to witness without intervention. A divine restraint that challenges our fundamental understanding of power, love, and sacrifice in the Christian narrative. Could heavenly warriors have ended Jesus' suffering with a single command? The specific roles attributed to Archangels Michael and Uriel during Christ's Passion reveal a paradox at the heart of Christian theology. Beings with the power to alter the course of history chose restraint over action. According to ancient texts, these weren't passive observers but active participants in a divine strategy that required the most powerful created beings to set aside their might in service to a greater purpose. Michael, traditionally known as the commander of God's armies and chief defender against the forces of darkness, found himself in an unprecedented position at Calvary. The Book of Revelation describes him as the angel who defeated Satan in celestial combat. Yet at the crucifixion, his legendary sword remained sheathed. According to the Ethiopic Book of the Mysteries of Heaven and Earth, Michael was positioned at the right hand of the cross, not as defender, but as witness and recorder, documenting each moment of suffering for heaven's eternal archives. This text describes a remarkable scene where Michael, the most formidable warrior in creation, trembled with restrained power. For the archangel who had cast Lucifer from heaven, being commanded to watch his creator suffer represented a spiritual discipline beyond human comprehension. Some Syriac manuscripts suggest that Michael repeatedly reached for his sword during the crucifixion, only to be restrained by divine command, illustrating the tension between justice and mercy that defines the Christian understanding of salvation. The Armenian tradition adds that Michael served as a spiritual barrier between realms during the crucifixion, preventing demonic forces from interfering with the divine plan. According to these accounts, Michael surrounded Golgotha with invisible legions of angels who formed concentric circles of protection, not to prevent the crucifixion, but to ensure it proceeded exactly as divinely ordained, without supernatural interference from opposing forces. While Michael served as heaven's general at Calvary, Uriel, often described as the light of God, or God's fire, played an equally significant but different role. In Jewish apocalyptic literature, Uriel is associated with divine wisdom and illumination. At the crucifixion, according to Coptic traditions, Uriel served as the keeper of cosmic time, ensuring that each prophesied moment unfolded in perfect sequence. The Gospel of Bartholomew, though not canonical, contains a passage where Uriel is described as the angel who holds the keys of the chambers of light. During the crucifixion, this text suggests Uriel controlled the supernatural darkness that fell over the land from the 6th to the 9th hour, not as punishment, but as a cosmic sign that nature itself was responding to its creator's suffering. This darkness, according to the text, was not merely the absence of light but a supernatural manifestation of divine sorrow that Uriel carefully orchestrated. Perhaps the most intriguing role attributed to Uriel comes from Eastern Orthodox traditions that identify him as the angel who collected Christ's blood in a sacred vessel. This account forms the foundation for the later Holy Grail legends that would captivate medieval imagination. According to these traditions, not a single drop of divine blood was allowed to fall to earth without purpose, and Uriel ensured its preservation for cosmic reasons beyond human understanding. The Syriac Book of the Cave of Treasures suggests another dimension to Uriel's role, describing him as the guardian of souls during the crucifixion. As Christ declared to the repentant thief, "Today you will be with me in paradise." It was allegedly Uriel who was tasked with ensuring this divine promise was fulfilled. According to this account, Uriel served as escort for the first soul to enter paradise through Christ's sacrifice, establishing the pathway that all redeemed souls would later follow. What emerges from these diverse traditions is a picture of two mighty archangels engaged not in battle, but in carefully orchestrated cosmic service. Rather than wielding their formidable power against Christ's tormentors, they channeled it into maintaining the delicate balance between heaven and earth during creation's most vulnerable moment. Their restraint wasn't weakness but represented the highest form of strength, the discipline to withhold power when its exercise would contradict divine purpose. The medieval theologian Pseudo-Dionysius suggested that the angel's restraint at the crucifixion represented the supreme lesson of divine governance, that true power lies not in its exercise but in knowing when to withhold it. For Michael and Uriel, beings accustomed to commanding cosmic forces, this restraint represented their most difficult mission. According to several mystical traditions, the angels' obedience in this moment of restraint earned them special honors in heaven's hierarchy, as they demonstrated a divine quality that transcended their nature as beings of action and judgment. What these accounts collectively suggest is that while human eyes saw only a man dying on a cross, the spiritual realm witnessed something far more complex, a carefully choreographed cosmic event where heaven's mightiest warriors served not by fighting, but by ensuring the divine plan unfolded precisely as intended, despite every instinct to intervene. Their presence wasn't passive but represented active participation in salvation's story, not as saviors, but as servants to the true Savior whose power was paradoxically revealed in apparent weakness. The divine paradox: why heaven's most powerful defenders were commanded not to defend. The theological significance of angelic restraint during the crucifixion represents one of Christianity's most profound paradoxes. A moment when omnipotence chose vulnerability and heaven's mightiest warriors submitted to a plan that required their non-intervention. This final aspect of the archangel's presence at the cross reveals deeper truths about divine purpose that continue to challenge and inspire believers across centuries. The restraint shown by Michael and Uriel at Calvary illuminates a central mystery of Christian theology, that salvation required not a display of overwhelming power, but its deliberate withholding. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus himself acknowledged this paradox when he stated he could have called more than 12 legions of angels to his defense, yet chose not to. What the apocryphal texts add to this biblical foundation is the suggestion that these angelic forces were indeed present, commanded to witness but not intervene, creating a cosmic tension that reverberates through Christian understanding. The Apocalypse of Peter, discovered among the Nag Hammadi texts in 1945, contains a remarkable passage describing Michael's internal struggle during the crucifixion. According to this account, the archangel who had never known hesitation found himself torn between obedience to divine command and his fundamental nature as defender of divine honor. The text describes Michael physically restraining himself, his hands gripping his sword hilt so intensely that divine light emanated from between his fingers, a visual representation of power deliberately contained rather than unleashed. This restraint takes on deeper significance when considered against Michael's cosmic role. Jewish and Christian traditions identify him as the angel who defeated Satan in celestial combat, casting the adversary from heaven. Yet at the crucifixion, this mighty warrior stood down while the ultimate adversary appeared to triumph. According to the Ethiopic Book of the Mysteries of Heaven and Earth, this reversal represented not defeat, but the implementation of a divine strategy beyond angelic comprehension, a higher warfare, where apparent surrender became the means of ultimate victory. Similarly, Uriel's restraint carried profound theological implications. As the angel traditionally associated with divine justice and the flaming sword that guarded Eden after the fall, Uriel embodied heaven's righteous judgment. Yet at Calvary, according to Coptic traditions, this angel of justice witnessed the apparent miscarriage of justice without intervention. The Discourse on Abaddon, an ancient Coptic text, suggests this paradox caused such cosmic tension that Uriel momentarily questioned the divine plan. Not in rebellion, but in the angelic equivalent of the human cry, "My God, why have you forsaken him?" The theological significance of this angelic restraint operates on multiple levels. First, it underscores the voluntary nature of Christ's sacrifice. According to these traditions, Jesus did not suffer because help was unavailable, but because divine purpose required that available help not be deployed. This transforms the crucifixion from a tragedy where God was powerless to intervene into a mystery where God purposefully chose not to exercise available power, a distinction with profound implications for understanding divine sovereignty and love. Second, the angel's restraint serves as a cosmic object lesson about the nature of spiritual warfare. The Book of the Resurrection, attributed to Bartholomew, suggests that Michael and Uriel's non-intervention at the cross established a new paradigm of spiritual conflict, one where victory sometimes requires apparent surrender and where power is demonstrated not always in dramatic action but sometimes in disciplined restraint. This concept would later influence Christian understanding of martyrdom and suffering as potential expressions of spiritual victory rather than defeat. Third, according to several Eastern Orthodox traditions, the angelic restraint at Calvary represented a pivotal moment in the relationship between the celestial and human realms. The Divine Liturgy of St. Basil contains veiled references to angels learning from humanity at the crucifixion, suggesting that Michael and Uriel witnessed something previously unknown in heaven, the power of sacrificial love. According to these traditions, the angels who had previously understood divine power, primarily through creation and judgment, now encountered its expression through vulnerability and sacrifice, expanding even angelic comprehension of divine nature. Perhaps most profoundly, the restrained posture of heaven's mightiest warriors at the cross illustrates what theologians call the kenotic dimension of divine love, God's self-emptying for the sake of creation. The letter to the Philippians describes Christ emptying himself to become human and embrace death. According to Armenian traditions, Michael and Uriel participated in this kenosis through their own form of self-emptying, setting aside their nature as divine warriors to become witnesses to a different kind of power. The Gospel of Nicodemus suggests that this restraint carried cosmic educational value. According to this text, Lucifer and his fallen angels gathered at Golgotha expecting divine intervention, anticipating the moment when God would finally abandon the pretense of human limitation and unleash celestial might against Christ's tormentors. When this intervention never came, when Michael kept his sword sheathed and Uriel withheld heaven's fire, the adversarial forces encountered a divine strategy they had never anticipated: victory through apparent defeat. Medieval theologians built upon these traditions to develop what became known as the holy deception theory of atonement, the concept that Christ's death represented a divine strategy that deceived the deceiver. According to this understanding, Michael and Uriel's restraint was essential to maintaining this divine ruse, allowing the adversary to believe he had triumphed precisely when his defeat was being accomplished. Their discipline in maintaining this cosmic masquerade, standing down when every angelic instinct called for action, became integral to salvation's implementation. What emerges from these traditions is a picture of the crucifixion not as a moment when divine power was absent, but when it was expressed in its most counterintuitive form. Michael and Uriel, beings created to exercise and implement divine might, found themselves participating in its deliberate withholding, learning along with all creation that divine omnipotence sometimes manifests not in dramatic displays of force, but in the power to endure apparent weakness for the sake of love. This paradox continues to challenge and inspire Christian understanding. If heaven's mightiest warriors could set aside their power in service to divine purpose, it suggests a model of strength fundamentally different from human conceptions, where restraint can require greater courage than action, and where victory sometimes comes not through overwhelming force but through the willingness to appear defeated while a greater purpose unfolds.